3 men disappeared, not from a battlefield, not from a shipwreck, not from a crowded city. They vanished from a lighthouse built to protect people from the sea. A lighthouse standing alone on a remote island off the coast of Scotland. When the relief crew arrived, the door was closed, the lamp was out, the clocks had stopped, a meal had been left untouched, one chair was overturned, the island was silent, and the 3 lighthouse keepers were gone. No bodies were found, no final message was left, no one ever proved what happened. And more than a century later, the question still remains. How can 3 men vanish from a rock in the middle of the ocean? Far out in the Atlantic, west of Scotland, there is a lonely group of islands known as the Flannan Isles. They are not gentle islands. They are cliffs, rocks, sea caves, wind, and waves. For centuries, sailors feared this place. The waters around the islands were dangerous, unpredictable, and unforgiving. Ships could be torn apart in the darkness. Men could disappear into the sea without leaving a trace. So, a lighthouse was built, a tower of light standing against the Atlantic. Its purpose was simple: guide ships safely home. But in December of 1900, that same lighthouse became the center of one of Scotland's most disturbing mysteries. The lighthouse was operated by trained keepers. These were not careless men. They understood storms, they understood isolation, they understood danger. Their names were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald McArthur. James Ducat was the principal keeper. Experienced, responsible, a man trusted with command of the station. Thomas Marshall was the second assistant, reliable, disciplined, used to the difficult life of lighthouse work. Donald McArthur was an occasional keeper, a man filling in temporarily. Together, they were responsible for keeping the light burning every night, no matter the weather, no matter the loneliness. Because if the light failed, ships at sea could die. Their work was routine, precise, strict. Oil, wicks, weather records, equipment, logs, meals, sleep, watch duty, then repeat. A lighthouse keeper's life was built on order. But what happened on the Flannan Isles was anything but orderly. On December 15, 1900, something unusual was noticed. A passing ship, the Arctur, reported that the Flannan Isles lighthouse was not showing its light. At sea, that was serious. A lighthouse going dark was not a small mistake. It was a warning. But because of bad weather, the relief vessel could not reach the island immediately. Days passed. The sea remained rough. The lighthouse stayed silent. And somewhere on that isolated island, 3 men were supposed to be waiting. But they were not answering. They were not signaling. They were not lighting the tower. The island had gone quiet. On December 26th, the relief vessel finally reached the Flannan Isles. The ship was called the Hesperus. On board was Joseph Mòr, the man scheduled to replace one of the keepers. As the vessel approached the island, Mòr noticed something was wrong. Usually, when a relief ship arrived, the keepers would come out to greet it. They would wave. They would help with the landing. They would prepare for supplies. But this time, no one appeared. No figure stood near the lighthouse. No smoke rose from the quarters. No signal came from the tower. Only the wind, only the sea, only the lighthouse standing silent above the cliffs. Mòr went ashore. He climbed the path toward the station, and with every step, the silence grew heavier. When he reached the entrance, he found the gate and door closed. Inside, the building was still, too still. The men were gone. The first thing Mòr noticed was the emptiness. There was no sign of the keepers, no voices, no footsteps, no movement. But the lighthouse did not look abandoned for long. It looked interrupted. A meal had been prepared. One chair was overturned, the beds were unmade, the clocks had stopped, the lamp had not been maintained, and 2 sets of outdoor oilskins were missing, but 1 set remained inside. That detail was chilling. Because lighthouse keepers did not go outside in dangerous weather without proper gear. Yet at least one man appeared to have left without his. Why? What could make an experienced keeper leave the safety of the station improperly dressed? And why would all 3 men leave at once? That was against procedure. Someone was always supposed to remain with the light. But the lighthouse was empty. All 3 men were gone. The crew searched the island. They checked the lighthouse. They searched the cliffs. They examined the landing areas. They looked toward the sea. Nothing. No bodies. No blood. No signs of a fight. No clear evidence of an accident. But outside, near the western landing, they found damage. Iron railings were twisted. A heavy box had been moved. Ropes and equipment had been disturbed. The sea had clearly struck the island with terrible force. The Atlantic had reached places it should not have reached. The waves had climbed the cliffs. The storm had left its marks. And suddenly, one explanation began to form. Had the men gone outside to secure equipment during a storm? Had one man been swept away? Had the others rushed to help? Had the sea taken them all? It was possible. It was the official direction the investigation would eventually lean toward. But even that explanation had problems. Why did all 3 go? Why was one oilskin left behind? Why was the lighthouse unattended? And why was there no body? The sea had answers, but it gave none back. Then came the part of the story that turned the mystery into legend. Reports later claimed that the lighthouse log contained strange entries, descriptions of violent storms, keepers behaving unusually, men becoming silent, one keeper allegedly crying, another praying, and then a final line: storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. These entries became famous. They made the mystery darker, more psychological, almost supernatural. But there is a problem. Many historians believe these dramatic logbook details were exaggerated or possibly invented later. The official records do not clearly support the most sensational versions. And that is important, because the secret archive does not need false details to make a mystery powerful. The real case is disturbing enough. 3 trained lighthouse keepers vanished. The light went out. The island was empty, and the sea left behind only damage and silence. That is the real horror, not ghosts, not legends. The simple fact that 3 men were there, and then they were not. The official explanation was that a powerful wave swept the men into the sea. It is not impossible. The Flannan Isles are exposed to brutal Atlantic weather. Waves can rise suddenly. A rogue wave can strike with devastating force. A man standing near the edge could vanish in seconds. And if the others tried to save him, they could vanish too. This theory explains the damaged equipment. It explains why the bodies were never recovered. It explains the silence. But it does not explain everything. It does not fully explain why all 3 men left the lighthouse. It does not explain the abandoned oilskins. It does not explain why experienced keepers would risk leaving the light unattended. Unless something happened quickly, something urgent, something that made procedure disappear. Maybe a box was breaking loose. Maybe equipment was being dragged toward the sea. Maybe one man shouted for help. Maybe the others ran. And in one terrible moment, the ocean took all 3. No warning, no time, no witness. Over the years, other theories emerged. Some wondered if there had been a fight, a disagreement, a sudden act of violence. But there was no evidence of murder, no blood, no weapon, no body. Others imagined pirates or intruders. But the island was remote, the weather was dangerous, and nothing supported the idea that outsiders had landed. Some believed one man had gone mad. That isolation had broken him, that the others had died because of it. But again, there was no proof. Then came the supernatural theories. Ghosts, sea spirits, curses, strange lights, ancient legends. The Flannan Isles already had a reputation. Remote places often collect stories. And when people vanish without explanation, imagination fills the empty space. But the strongest mystery is not whether something supernatural happened. The strongest mystery is that the ordinary explanation still leaves a shadow. A storm may have taken them. But why were they all outside? Why was one man without proper protection? Why did no one remain behind? Why did the lighthouse go dark? Those questions are why the case refuses to disappear. It is easy to remember the Flannan Isles mystery as a legend. 3 keepers, 1 lighthouse, no bodies. But before they became a mystery, they were men. They had families, they had homes, they had voices, they had ordinary worries. They were not characters in a ghost story. They were workers doing a dangerous job in one of the loneliest places in Scotland. Imagine the final hours, the wind rising, the sea smashing against the cliffs, the lighthouse shaking, the men listening to the waves below. Maybe they heard equipment breaking loose. Maybe one of them opened the door. Maybe he saw something outside. Maybe he called for help. Then another man followed. Then the third. The door closed behind them. The light remained untended. And somewhere between the lighthouse and the sea, the story ended. After the disappearance, replacement keepers returned to the station. The lighthouse continued to operate. Ships still needed guidance. The sea did not stop. The tower did not fall. Life moved on. But the island was never the same. Every sound must have felt different. Every gust of wind, every wave against the rock, every empty room, because the men who worked there knew what had happened. Or rather, they knew what had not been answered. 3 men had disappeared from the same station, and no one could say with certainty how. The lighthouse was supposed to be a place of safety, a place of order, a place where men fought darkness with light. But on the Flannan Isles, darkness entered anyway. The Flannan Isles mystery survives because it touches something deep. The fear of isolation, the fear of the sea, the fear of vanishing without explanation. There is something uniquely terrifying about a place with nowhere to hide and nowhere to go, where 3 men can still disappear. No crowded street, no forest, no war, just a lighthouse, a small island. In the ocean, the case does not need monsters. It does not need conspiracy. It does not need supernatural proof, because the truth, whatever it was, may have been simple. A wave, a mistake, a moment of panic, a decision made too quickly, and sometimes that is more frightening. Because it means history can change in seconds. A door opens, a man steps outside, another follows. The sea rises, and the world never sees them again. More than a century has passed since James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald McArthur vanished from the Flannan Isles lighthouse. The tower still stands. The waves still break against the cliffs. The wind still moves across the island. But the men never returned. No grave, no final words, no answer, only a lighthouse that once went dark, and a mystery that has refused to fade. Every lighthouse is built for one purpose, to guide people safely home. But on the Flannan Isles, 3 men walked into the light and somehow disappeared into the darkness.